Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for everyone being here today for this important and critical conversation regarding safety in our city. Big thank you to Sandra Samuels and the Northside Achievement Zone for hosting us today. And it's been nearly a year since the murder of George Floyd, and right now Minneapolis is at a crossroads. A million different individual paths have led to this point in time, and what's clear is that right now our children's futures are at stake. Our children's lives are being cut short. Parents and families are grappling with the reality that they don't feel comfortable having their child jump on a trampoline without the risk of gun violence or a stray bullet. For Trinity, for 10-year-old Ladavian, for the thousands of residents and families who have been impacted by gun violence this year, this moment must mark a turning point. So today we are announcing a series of new proposals that we will push forward for a new Minneapolis model around community safety and accountability and immediate change. So developed over these last several months, this framework outlines a broader investment in a compassionate approach to public safety, community-backed models for safety throughout our communities, and we want to make sure that we are addressing the root causes of crime and violence that we're seeing throughout our city. The violence that we have seen, the crime and the gunshots, let's be very clear, it's unacceptable in every way, shape, and form. So we're going to maintain our focus on and making sure that we increase the cadence of our department level changes and accountability within the police department. And yes, we're also going to demand immediate intervention, prevention, and response by both law enforcement officers as well as through our Office of Violence Prevention, and investments will be made on those facets. The ultimate goal of this continued push right now is to make all Minneapolis neighborhoods safer, whether you're on the north side or the south side. Families need to feel safe. Parents need to feel safe sending their kid out on the sidewalk to play and recreate. And I'll tell you, the plan that we have developed and upheld has several different key priority areas. The first is immediate. It's around summer safety response, and we want to institute that as quickly as possible, recognize that the urgency is now. Targeted resources, whether that's through the Office of Violence Prevention or community-based approach, or through making sure that law enforcement partners have the necessary tools that they need to succeed. Department-wide accountability, because we believe that the concepts of public safety and accountability, they're not mutually exclusive. They are, in fact, intrinsically linked. End safety beyond policing. Sandra Samuels has said it 1,000 times. We'll say it again. We believe in a both-end approach. We believe in safety beyond policing and accountability, and we also know that we need law enforcement. So I'll take each of those parts in turn, and we'll focus on a few of the more significant items that are in the plan that you all should have. So in the near term, Chief Arredondo has been in very close contact with county, with state, with Metro Transit and federal partners to crack down on those that are committing violent crimes here in Minneapolis. That work will include added investigative and civilian capacity. It'll include closer collaboration with community members and a tailored outreach for resources to ensure that victims, witnesses, and those that are most impacted by this violence get the support that they need each and every day. We'll also soon be able to add more tools to our toolbox. Thanks to the passage of the American Rescue Act, which will see us ultimately receive up to around $281 million, and the guidelines that have been provided by the Treasury just last week on May 10th, we have now been able to move forward with some additional specificity, working with community, working with experts in and around our city to make sure that we are able to deploy resources where they are needed most and as quickly as possible. And so I'll propose directing that funding toward a new multi-million-dollar safety fund that trusted community partners would be able to draw from to amplify their existing work and at times not yet started work around keeping neighborhoods safe. And we'll also be pitching a new program championed by Gail Smaller, who's here with us, along with Service Employees International Union, SEIU Local 26, which will have a specific focus here in North Minneapolis, but could be piloted for the greater good throughout our city and on the south side as well. The Community Safety Specialist program has the promise and potential to immediately expand the capacity that we need. It relies on a trusted apprenticeship as well, which helps to bolster the recruiting line that we have into our department itself, recognizing that we all want more of our Minneapolis Police Department officers to be from and for community. We would immediately boost prevention and enforcement work through a cross-jurisdictional task force as well that would be anchored by Chief Arredondo. He and his team have been putting together a proposal to make this happen. The needs of our city are clear, and they are exceedingly obvious. Gun violence is traumatizing our neighborhoods across our city, including and especially right here in North Minneapolis. I'm not naive enough to think that there won't be some political pushback to making these different parts of this plan a reality, but if there ever was a time for local governments to come together, for community, for elected officials to rally around a common cause, which is both safety in our communities and accountability, now is that time. Second, we're going to be increasing the pace of ongoing work to elevate standards within the Minneapolis Police Department and enact much-needed culture shift. We'll continue pressing for that internal change within our department, and that will also make ours a more just and a more effective department. We'll be pursuing new trainings for the department that prioritize de-escalation and peer intervention. We are continuing to elevate our field training officer program and the standards through which it's implemented. And notably, we're also moving forward with changes to traffic enforcement on Minneapolis roadways. The disparities in traffic stops are well tread, and those disparities are unacceptable, period. We're committed to ending traffic stops solely for low-level offenses, such as small objects hanging from rear-view mirrors, inoperable license plate lights, or a busted taillight. Likewise, Chief Arredondo and I are consulting with the city attorney's office, and we intend also to be in coordination with the state of Minnesota around the issue of expired tabs violations and making sure that these are no longer the primary reason for the traffic stop to begin with. These are significant changes, and we anticipate that they will yield significant results in reducing the unacceptable level of enforcement disparities while also enhancing community safety. Again, this must be a both-end approach. Finally, we are doubling down on safety beyond policing. We've consistently built up new initiatives and invested in a public health-based approach to this work. Director Sasha Cotton has led so much of this work, and we are now discussing additional proposals from the rescue plan itself, and we're already identifying some of the key priority areas through which we can invest in the coming weeks and months. We are committed to expanding the Minneapolis Violence Interrupter Team, and as pandemic restrictions are lifted, we're going to be able to make sure that that team is expanded further. We're making sure that we've got, as some of the pandemic restrictions are loosened, we'll be able to continue the very successful group violence intervention program, and we'll be able to enhance the work that is already underway through it. We need to move with purpose. Right now, we need to move with compassion. We also need to move with a sense of urgency that does, in fact, affirm that Black lives matter. The north side of Minneapolis matters. Victims and families that have suffered for far too long from gun violence, they matter. And it's incumbent on each and every one of us to stand up to make sure that they feel safe within their neighborhoods. So these proposals, they should serve as a Minneapolis model for navigating this community safety and accountability work, but this is not the end of the work. We're standing here with a very clear message. And that message is that the status quo cannot prevail. Every willing partner is invited to join us in this commitment to rebuild and to reinvest in our city. Every family deserves to feel safe in their neighborhood. This year alone, not even at the halfway point, 19 children have been struck by gunfire. Countless more have been traumatized through exposure. There have been 27 homicides. This is not acceptable. The work has been underway. The work has been underway. But this needs to be a turning point right now for our city and a starting point for these new strategies that we know will now push for a renewed commitment from our city. So many of the people that are joining me here today have poured themselves into this work around community safety. We show up today as sincere partners. We show up today in preparation to partner with whoever is willing, a coalition of the willing around community safety and accountability. So proud to partner with each and every one of you. And with that, I will first turn it over to Councilmember Cano from the South Side, who has been a champion of so much of this public safety work. I greatly appreciate her partnership. Councilmember Cano.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. We know that we are gathering in a moment where so many of our young children need our help. They need our support. They need our presence and our leadership. My name is Alondra Cano, and I represent the 9th Ward on the Minneapolis City Council. I've had the pleasure of working with many of my colleagues and partners here for 8 years on some of the deepest and hardest public safety issues of our city. For over a year, we've committed to listening to residents, to concerned constituents, and to community leaders about this moment in our city. The transformation that is needed in our communities has a spot at the table for all of us. So I'm hoping that this is not the last time that we get to see each other and talk about this important issue. As a South Minneapolis leader, I am very aware of the impacts of commercial sexual exploitation and human trafficking in our city. I am here in support of the mayor's plan, which is a citywide plan, and of our chief of police in leading through that difficult challenge to help us eradicate and end commercial sexual exploitation on Lake Street and in any other part of the city. All of our women, all of our community members should have a right to decide how they can be in a space without feeling the subjugation and the abuse and the oppression of how their bodies are used and abused. So we're here to say enough, and that will end. I'm very thankful to have other Southside partners here today who will help us in that struggle. The Family Partnership, Northside Achievement Zone, of course, is a leader in this conversation, and I've been personally very moved by all of the messages that we've been getting from deeply rooted leaders in this community asking us to step in, to step up, to collaborate, and to lead with our chief of police. So consider me an ally, consider me a supporter, and I will be here to help us usher in a new era of safety, peace, and security for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cano. Next we have Councilmember Lene Palmisano, who has been done some amazing work around both transparency, accountability, and safety within our city. Councilmember Palmisano from the 13th Ward.
Thank you. I'm Lene Palmisano, 13th Ward City Council member. I'm here to forward this urgency that we're at a critical juncture in our city. As we work to direct our city's recovery efforts from the global health pandemic and provide necessary support for residents and for businesses, we also need to ensure stability. That means stemming this uptick in violence to make space for lasting growth. We get there by listening to the experts that we have unanimously chosen to lead us and to help us build this plan. We get there by ensuring Chief Arredondo has the resources he needs to execute this strategy, to respond to all emergency 911 calls and to end these cycles of violence in our communities. We have all put our faith in this chief, and we believe in the values he's working to instill throughout the force and into our community. Now is the time to give him the resources that he needs. For years, I've said we must approach public safety through a lens of health and of wellness. That's for the community and also for those that are serving the community as peace officers. We achieve the best outcomes when our staff are healthy and they're supported in their work. Right now, our officers are overburdened and overworked, and we cannot continue to rely on overtime for staffing minimums. It is an unsustainable and ultimately an unsafe practice. In order to meet these goals, we must address the staffing needs in our police department. In order to reach this stability, we also need to make lasting investments in health and wellness programs. We must practice a culture of mindfulness in every aspect of public safety delivery across our city. It's imperative that we rebuild and maintain the public trust in our systems. Ensuring integrity and transparency in what we do and how we do it is the bedrock of a functional government. Departments like our audit team and our Police Conduct Oversight Commission have been working to improve systems within MPD around training, investigations, reporting, body cameras, hiring, and much, much more. These are the tools that generate lasting changes and concrete policy recommendations, and that is how we will achieve enduring change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Palmisano. I just want to do a brief audio check to make sure that everything's functioning. Do we need to wait just a second to make sure that we got it all? Should I hold? Oh, it's a sign language. Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you so much, Councilmember Palmisano. The next speaker doesn't need much of an introduction at all. He's been leading our Minneapolis Police Department with great integrity and compassion. I'm proud to work alongside Chief Arredondo. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Fry. I also want to thank Ms. Sandra Samuels and Naz for all the great work that they continue to do on behalf of our communities. And I also just want to note that the leadership that you see standing behind me, both from our faith community, our elected officials, our community leaders, this is truly what Minneapolis is. While we may not always agree on everything, what we do unanimously agree on is that violence has to stop. That has no place in our city. Our children and our young people are not disposable. Their lives are valuable to us. Intentional violence inflicted in our community, regardless of where that comes from, that should be condemned by everyone. I also want to say that reimagining and common sense do not have to be arch enemies. We've got smart people. We can get together and we can solve these issues. And so we are going to absolutely do that. The work ahead of us is going to be challenging and daunting. As Mayor Fry indicated, I am down about a third of our department. We cannot do this work alone, and I certainly know that. It's going to take the collective leadership of all of us to do that. But we've got to come together. This violence cannot continue. I refuse to have to call the mayor at a late hour to tell him one of our children has been shot and wounded. That should not happen. Regardless of what aisle you sit on, that should never occur. And so we have to be deeply committed to that as we move forward. I know that this has been some challenging times, and I also want to say that for a third of our department is no longer here. But for the men and women of the Minneapolis Police Department that continue to show up day and night, they deserve our thanks and gratitude for being shown up, for stepping into spaces, and for any community members that would dare try to harm them because they're trying to save lives. That is unacceptable. It will not be tolerated, and we will charge you to the full extent of the law. Now, the gun violence is our biggest nemesis right now in our city. Make no doubt about that. I'm so thankful that over the past year, the relationships with our mutual aid partners has been phenomenal. Both our local, state, sheriff's office, and federal partners. And that work is going to continue. I can let every Minneapolitan know tonight we are going to leverage and bring to bear all the intelligence assets, all the other resources we can to keep our city safe. But we've got to do this. We've got to do this together. And I have a specific message for our judges. And while I respect the immense judicial responsibility you have, I want to tell you something. I know that when it comes to sentencing, that you look at an individual's criminal history, and oftentimes that sentencing is based on the lengthiness of their criminal history. Well, I want our judges to know that we are seeing a phenomena in our city and across the country where violent acts, where multiple gunshots are ringing out, are sometimes occurring, and that is the individual's first or second offense. We're part of an ecosystem of public safety. Our men and women are going to rush into harm's way, and they are going to apprehend those criminals. But to our judges, I beg you to re-examine when you are releasing violent individuals back out into our communities. There's a price that we all pay for that. And so I need you to re-examine that. So we are going to continue to move forward. And again, it is through this collective partnership. And I will tell you that I remain hopeful and optimistic that we as a city, we are going to start healing. And that begins with hope. And I stand here in the midst of hope today because of the leadership that is by my side. So thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much, Chief Arredondo, for your leadership throughout this very difficult time. I think I can speak for all of us. It is greatly appreciated. We're proud to have the individual I believe is the best chief in our country. Next up has been a consummate leader here on the North Side, head of North Side Achievement Zone, someone who has always been willing to step up and make her voice heard on behalf of community. Please join me in welcoming Sandra Samuels.
I want to thank the mayor, and I want to thank our police chief. I want to thank the council members who are here. Notice the council members who are here, and notice the council members who are not. And so I just want to thank you for your courage. And I thank all of the business leaders and my neighbors who showed up as well, because we are here because we can't take it anymore. And we're here because we're standing and we're saying the rhetoric around defund has gotten us to where we are today. We can do both and. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Every single police officer is not Officer Chauvin. The chief is not Officer Chauvin. John Elder is not Officer Chauvin. If we haven't noticed, we have to cut the games out because our babies are dying. We need a fully staffed police department and a transformed police department that also has services and supports that the mayor talked about for our city's residents, because we know economics matter and we know education matters. That's why I'm part of the North Side Achievement Zone. And you might notice that we have boards on our building because the building was shot up a few weeks ago. You might have heard that 2 people were shot that night. This is a building, this is an organization, this is a community filled disproportionately with children. The North Side has more children than any other neighborhood in Minneapolis. And I'm here for our partners, I'm here for our neighbors and everybody. And also, I am going to say the name, because the protesters aren't here saying the name of Trinity, who was shot in the head on my block down the street from my house Saturday night, 8 years old. I'm saying her name. Where are the other people? I guess we're not saying her name because a white police officer didn't shoot her in the head. I'm saying LaDavion's name because LaDavion, a 10-year-old at 35th and Morgan, got shot in the head. Maybe we're not saying his name. Maybe we're not marching. Maybe we're not demanding change because a white police officer did not assault. But let me tell you, that has to stop. I'm talking both and. That has to stop. We can't have any more Chauvins, and nor can we have the level of community violence that we are seeing right now. This is real. I have lived here for 24 years, raised 3 daughters. We are suffering. I have neighbors, I have children who are being shot. I know of people who are being shot. People are scared to exercise anymore on the North Side. People are scared to go outside. Many of my neighbors are on medication, including me. Can't handle the anxiety. This is real. The trauma. And then we wonder why kids can't show up to school and learn. We have to do better by them and be grown people and adults. And I gotta tell you, I'm looking over at my neighbors. And I have a neighbor that I love. I love all my neighbors, but Amy, wave your hand. Amy and Gabe and Hannah and John and Jackson had to move from next door to me. About 2 weeks ago, they had to move to Plymouth because of the level of gun violence. I love my neighbors. We are losing them. And we are losing our children. This is not politics. This is serious. And so I stand behind a plan. I stand behind the chief. I stand behind the mayor for safety now. And I'm going to close by saying I am part of Minneapolis 8. Kathy, Julie, Amy, wave your hands in the air. We are 8 Northsiders who are suing the city of Minneapolis for failing to protect us. We are suing for a lack of staffing of police officers to keep us safe. How else is this going to happen? And I'm proud to do that. And I feel like it's the only lever the city really has to make change is if a judge demands that it happens. But I want to close by, I want to thank all of the police officers who are not Officer Chauvin. I want to thank all of those officers that keep us safe every single day. I want to thank my neighbors who love this city. And even though Amy had to move, she still loves this city. And I thank all of you. And I am hopeful today because of who showed up that we are going to do this. We will capture our city back. We will rebuild. We will restore trust. And we will reimagine success and prosperity for all.
Thank you, Sandra Samuels, for having the courage to stand by your convictions. Next up, we have Pastor Jalila Brown, who I had the opportunity to join in a circle of healing over at Shiloh just, I guess, not more than a few weeks or a month ago. She's been a member of community. She's tried and true here on the north side, and we greatly appreciate her leadership. Pastor.
I want to say thank you to the mayor and to Chief Arredondo and to all these leaders behind me, because it takes collective if we are going to reimagine public safety together. Now, females in urban communities are acutely impacted by violence as victims, witnesses, and perpetrators. In all of my 28 years here in Minneapolis, I've never seen so many women and young children shot and impacted by violence like we've seen since 2020. We are seeing an uptick of violence. And the reason being is because we right now have no programs, especially in North Minneapolis. So what did we do? We didn't complain, but we created a program that is hosted at Shiloh Temple, and it is called For Women Only. And what we do in that group, we host ages 13 to 45. And we went from 10 people being in this group to 150 young girls and women. We host mental health care. A lot of the stuff that we are seeing is underlying mental health care. We have a lot of the lots over here that people are able to buy drugs from willingly and openly. Something has to give. And if we are going to see change, we are going to have to make change together. So we started that program, and then in the midst of that, what we saw was that we can't just deal with the females, we have to deal with their children. So they are also bringing their children to these groups. We offer counseling, one-on-one sessions, mentorship, and then we also offer personal resources as far as helping to pay rent, and then we case manage them, so we keep up with them daily, because sometimes we come to these press conferences and then our community is left behind. We never do anything after the conference. But I believe that we have a mayor and that we have a chief of police and that we have a community now that is saying enough is enough. Something has to give. And we're not going to get anything done unless we do it together. We now have to have a collective mindset. We need Northside Achievement Zone. We need the Office of Violence Prevention. We need our hospitals. We need our mayor and our leadership working together if we are going to see real change. One person can start a movement, but it takes a community to make change. I am here today saying something has to give. And then under the Shiloh Temple, Shiloh Cares Outreach Department, we are now feeding over 50 students of the Minneapolis Public School on our lot. We hosting basketball on our lot just so we can keep our community alive. We are tired of our community dying. I am a violence prevention specialist in this city, so I am one of the first ones at the scene, at the hospital, watching people live or die. I am here to say enough is enough. We need to have an and/or approach. We can get this done together. We need our police. I'm going to say that again. We need our police. The teams that are out there, they are a great outreach team, but they have not been trained to handle criminals. We need our police officers, and I believe that together we can be Minneapolis strong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Next, I'd like to invite up Bishop Howell. He has been there every single step of the way. I cannot tell you how many different community events that he has hosted that I've had the honor of attending over at Shiloh. This is someone who brings people together in a beautiful way, and we're honored to have him here with us. Bishop.
Thank you, Mayor Fry. Chief of Police, thank you. I say grace and love to this city. Grace and peace to this mercy. The time has come for us to love our city and to take back our city where it belongs. Our thoughts and prayers are with Trinity today, with her family, that some way God will touch her body and raise her and give her life. Not just for Trinity, but all of our young ladies, all of our young men who've been shot down because they didn't have a chance to live beyond 15 years old. I am angry this morning, this afternoon, and this evening because this is not the way a city is supposed to be running. This is not the way life is supposed to be. A child should be able to have fun on a trampoline and enjoy without being afraid to get shot down. There's something wrong with that. And this is our city. I thank God for our mayor. I thank God for our chief for taking this tough stand. We support them 100%. We're behind them 100% for this safety plan in this great city of Minneapolis. I was raised in this city. I was raised on the south side, the northeast side, the southeast side. I live on the north side. I work on the north side. And trust me, this is one of the greater cities in the whole United States. Trust me, it is. And when we get our city back, it will be even a greater city to live in this community in the name of justice, in the name of grace, and the name of peace. At Shiloh Temple, we have a safe space for anyone to come. But we're asking all houses of worship, open up your houses of worship right now. Create a 3 to 4 mile radius. Touch and reach out to your neighborhood. Have a barbecue with hot sauce, chitlins, greens, potato salad. Come on, let's be community. Let's reach out and touch our partners. This is our city, and it's time to take it back.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a firm believer that everyone has the obligation to do whatever it is that they do best to benefit society the most. This guy can preach, my goodness. So next, I'm really honored to invite up Gail Smaller, who has been working constantly with community and NERC here on the north side, as well as a partner with SEIU Local 26 around creating a pilot that can be community-driven and community-supported right here on the north side. He'll give a bit of a rundown as to the vision for that plan, and we're really honored to partner along with you, Mr. Smaller. Gail Smaller.
I probably should have went about 10 minutes ago. Following Miss Daniels and these guys. No, I'm just saying following those guys. First, I'd like to thank Jacob and the chief. I represent a Northside community that has historically had, contentious relationships with the city, with the police department. I believe that the stance that was taken and the guts that was shown by the mayor to set the domino rolling that led to a conviction, which I believe was firing those officers, man, and we appreciate that. And the way that you backed them up, Chief, I think that the community has a lot more faith in our ability to make a compromise and work together to solve these problems. And so I'm excited to be able to come forth. I'm speaking today as my role as the chair of the NERC Safety Committee, which used to be the Crime and Safety Committee, but after last summer, we realized that if we make citizens arrest and take them to the police office, it's kidnapping. So we'll leave that to these guys. And what our role is to take dives deeper into the weeds. The police officers are limited on the access that they can get, their access to the community to be able to solve a lot of these problems on the front end. So that's kind of the role that the program spawned out of. I would love to stand here and say that I'm a grand architect and that this is innovative and new. This is something that the community has been doing since NERC was formed in the 70s. As last summer, as we've seen, it's hotter. The volunteers were getting burnt out. So the community asked if we could look at a way to design this as something that would be ongoing, where we could take some of the young men who have traditionally been on the other side of the law and bring them to the side of the community where they're responsible for keeping the elders and the women and the children safe within the community. So the CSS program is a collaboration between the Northside Residents Redevelopment Council, Next Global Security, which is a Black-owned security company from North Minneapolis, and the local SCI union. One of the goals of the program was to be able to take these young men, put them into an apprentice program, make them journeymen as community safety specialists that would be responsible for safety of our residents. The keys about it, which was really exciting for us at NERC and as the low-end residents, was that these young men are going to be licensed by the state. The union helped us facilitate that process. So these guys will go through a 1.5 years worth of training, and at the end they will be able to acquire a livable wage. And so what our hope is that we can support the officers, we can support the mayor by being able to move in a way which officers can't, to be able to prevent violence way ahead of time. As we were doing interviews with some of the young men who were killing people, as we were sitting down talking, a lot of these young men couldn't remember what the original argument was about that led to the shootings. So if we as community members can step up, get involved, solve some of these problems before it gets to the legal process, then I think we'll be doing our role and playing our part. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gail Smaller, for your work. And with that, we can open it up to questions.
Mayor Fry, I mean, you're missing the majority of the city council here today. If you're proposing using federal funding to do this, don't you need the support of the city council to make that happen? And explain that to me. And
Yep.
also just comment on the fact that those usual suspects aren't here.
Sure.
And I foresee another fight.
You know, yes, certainly we do need a majority of the city council in order to pass the, I'm sorry. Oh, of course, yes. So the question was asking about how, in fact, some of these Rescue Act dollars will ultimately get passed. And the way it will work is I will make a recommendation followed. First, there will be a number of groups that are meeting. They're already meeting. These are experts. This will get some community input. Those recommendations will be given to me. I will then put forward an overarching recommendation that will then go to City Council. The City Council will then amend and adopt that proposal. And you know, while this work around this community safety plan has been underway for months, pulling together this press conference was in a little bit more short order, given some of the violence that we saw in our city over the past weekend. We felt strongly that we would need to have a common voice and a very quick response to make sure that the community here that has been experiencing so much violence knew that we were with them. I'd like to acknowledge some of the other council members that did not get to speak. Also, Councilmember Lisa Goodman, Councilmember Jamal Osman, and Councilmember Kevin Reich are also here with us. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge what you mentioned, which, yes, there is a divergence of opinion. I respect all the council members, but there is a divergence of opinion between those that want to see a both-end approach to public safety, which is safety beyond policing and accountability, yes, and also recognizing the need to have our police department properly staffed, and those that want to push for defunding and or further reducing the number of officers that we're presently having on our street. As the chief mentioned, we've already seen about a 1/3 reduction in the numbers that we have in our police department. It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that has a massive impact. That has a massive impact on not just our ability to respond to 911 calls, but also our ability to deliver on these community-oriented approaches, like, for instance, the Group Violence Intervention Program. These programs need to operate as supplemental to the work that is underway already in our police department. You need law enforcement and you need the community-driven approach working simultaneously to see safety. That's exactly the message that I'm delivering and that all of these community members behind me are delivering here today.
What are you guys delivering, what again? Go into effect tomorrow or today. Like, what will change immediately?
So the question was about what will change immediately. There's 4 different parts to the proposal that we are moving forward with. The first is trying to have as an immediate as possible a response to some of the gun violence that we're seeing. A lot of that work, by the way, is already underway, and so you'll see those changes in the immediacy. The second one is making sure that we've got very targeted resources that are going through the rescue plan and act. That will obviously take a little bit of time because we've still got to have the recommendations given and then the approval that is made, but we look to have those funds disseminated for community for this summer. The third piece is culture and accountability shift. A lot of those changes will be made in the very near future, and we're talking about days and weeks from now. These changes can move forward. And then the final piece is making sure that we have accountability within our police department and that we're doing safety beyond policing work. That safety beyond policing work can go both through the budgetary process as well as some of which can go through the Rescue Act dollars. So the answer is all of the above. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's already, that will begin in the very short term and in the immediacy.
What sort of targeted resources are you're talking about targeted resources for this summer, and yet you only have 5 council members here. You're saying are going to get a majority as targeted resources?
That's right.
How much, what are the resources? How are you going to get
You should have the plan before you, but as you correctly mentioned, yeah, we certainly will need a majority of support. Again, we wanted to move in short order here to make sure that the community heard directly from us, especially following some of the violence that we've seen this weekend. And yes, we are. Say it again.
how much money?
One of the proposals is for more than $2 million for community safety oriented projects. There will also be monies to make sure that we have the necessary mutual aid and law enforcement presence as well.
Mayor, you spoke about that difference of opinion. Have you had any conversations in the interim with those council members here to try to sort of bridge the gap there?
I've had a series of conversations to bridge this gap with respect to this notion of defunding the police. I also just need to acknowledge the realities of this situation, which is, yes, there is a disagreement. I'm hopeful that this is an area where we can unite around a common vision for a both-end approach to public safety, and that's our call today.
I noticed that there's no added
Can
police
anybody
officers.
come up there and say something?
No, please.
Say something about what's going on in the community?
Yes.
Because I'm hearing everybody up here talk about this and that. Well, you want to get the hitters off the street?
Yeah.
Take your ass up there to Broadway right now. They
Yeah.
all up there.
Appreciate
In the
that.
shopping center right now. Now let me see the first person move to go get it.
Yeah.
Okay? You want to, if you're going to stop it, it's not the police, because the police come after the fact, after the
Yeah.
shit happened. And the police don't know these neighborhoods.
That's right.
People don't trust the police. I trust you.
Thank you, sir.
I don't trust your buddy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay?
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much for that expression of the urgency. I appreciate it.
I'm trying to tell you right now.
Yeah.
You want these hitters? The
Yeah.
hitters are the killers that's killing kids like her, my
Yeah.
daughter. They up there on Broadway right now. Go up on Broadway right now, all of us.
Yeah.
And let's go in the shopping center and approach them all and say, hey, what's going on?
Thank you,
How
sir.
many guns you got in your car?
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
They got
Thank
them
you.
down there right now.
That's right. Can we give him a round of applause? I think he's dead on in so many respects. Sandra, go for it.
Mayor, the LaDavion's grandmother is here. So, do you want LaDavion is a 10-year-old?
I'd like to invite someone that is really critical to this conversation. You know, we have to be centering victims of the gun violence that we're seeing. LaDavion's grandmother is here with us right now, and she'd like to say a few words loud and clear to the community. Please join me in giving her a huge round of applause for her courage.
Hi, my name is Shamanda. Grew up in North Minneapolis, from North Minneapolis. I want to say one thing. I'm just trying to figure out why this community not angry. Why do y'all only march when black on black crime happen? Why ain't nobody mad about my 10-year-old grandson fighting for his life at North Memorial? Why are we doing a news conference on Penn and Broadway and it's 2 kids at North Memorial right now fighting for their life from a gunshot wound to the head? When is North Minneapolis gonna stand up? When is enough enough? How are y'all so comfortable and so cool and so calm and it's 2 kids that's fighting for their life? Y'all tell me how? How? How are y'all at home resting? How are y'all at home not doing anything? It's 2 kids, an 8 and a 10-year-old fighting for their life. They should be at school right now. They should be doing what kids do. When did it become cool to shoot a kid? When do you get brownie points for shooting a kid? You don't get no justification for shooting a kid. Y'all got 2 kids. Y'all done traumatized 2 families. My grandson didn't deserve this. That little girl didn't deserve this. They were playing in their yard. He had just got out of school. That little girl was minding her business. When are y'all gonna do something about these guns? Y'all keep on giving these people a slap on the wrist and they shooting our kids now. When is enough enough? When are y'all gonna stand up and do something? Why is this community not pissed off? I'm angry. I'm mad. When are y'all gonna stand up? Why are we at North Memorial right now and ain't none of y'all here? Why are y'all here? Why are y'all here? What are y'all doing here? What is this doing here? This ain't doing shit. My grandson is fighting for his life. This ain't doing nothing. Y'all ain't doing nothing. Y'all not doing nothing. This ain't nothing. What is y'all gonna step into the community and do something in the community? In the community, this where we live at. This where we got to be at. This where my grandson come play at, and he can't. He fighting for his life. Trinity fighting for her life. When on Northside, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? I suffered a heart attack on Tuesday from this. I had heart surgery on Thursday. I shouldn't even be out here right now, but I'm still fighting for my grandson. You know why? Because that's all I got. That's all I got. I'm going to be his voice until he able to speak. I'm going to speak for him because he didn't deserve it. A 10-year-old with a gunshot wound to the head. Why is this community not angry? Y'all tell me that. Because it was a black kid? Is that why? Is that why? Because a cop didn't shoot him? Is that why? Nobody angry? Y'all got to be kidding me. We got to do better than this. We got to do better than this. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. It done got so that we just immune to it now. We just turn our heads now. We just immune. No, we're not immune. No, I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to stop talking about it. Y'all might go on with y'all life, but this is our life. This is what we live every day for the last 16 days. 16 days. I seen y'all a few days. 16 days, though, we've been at North Memorial. We had prayers every day at 6 p.m. at North Memorial. Ain't none of y'all there. None of y'all there. Everybody in this community should be angry. Why y'all not mad? Ain't nobody mad. It's 2 kids now. What is going to be a 3rd one this weekend? This is 2 kids now. When are y'all going to step up? A 10 and 8-year-old? They ain't even begin life. And who to say they even gonna have life? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the repercussions in behind this. So I'm talking to the mayor, the chief, the community activist, everybody. Where y'all at? When are y'all gonna do something? When is enough? 2 kids? 2 kids. In less than 16 days, 2 kids. Y'all make that make sense to y'all. Then it might make sense to me too, because it's not adding up right now. But y'all keep my grandson in prayers. Keep little Trinity in prayers, because they fighting. They fighters. They fighters. Them little babies is fighting. But why should they have to fight for something like this? Why should they? Where everybody at? I can't believe everybody did a news conference and the families wasn't invited. How do y'all do a news conference without the families invited? We suffering. We the ones suffering. We the ones hurting. We live here. Y'all go home. We live here every day. How are y'all not mad? Where's everybody at? We only march when it's against the police, huh? We ain't gonna march against 2 kids, though, getting shot. We ain't gonna stand up for their rights, though. We ain't gonna do that. That's too much like right. We gotta do better, Minneapolis. We gotta do better. This unacceptable here. This totally unacceptable. 2 kids? 2 kids in less than 16 days with gunshot wounds to the head. To the head. This could have been all bad. By the grace of God, they still fighting. Y'all keep them in prayers. And I just hope that the mayor, the chief, and anyone else that may be involved, I hope y'all step up. Because if not, this is gonna be a deadly summer. This is gonna be a deadly summer of kids. Of kids. Our kids ain't safe now. Our next generation. These is our future doctors, nurses, senators, mayors, police chiefs. Where they coming in at? When we gonna protect them? When we gonna stand up for them? Y'all wanna talk about something? Stop talking and do something. Enough talk. We see it every day. We ride past it every day. We see it. We see it. But when is something gonna get done? News conferences, we can have these every day. Every day we can have a news conference. But when is some action gonna get took care of? Consequences, sacrifices. Y'all got to remember this is a 10 and 8-year-old kid fighting for their life from a gunshot wound. A gunshot wound to the head. Come on, y'all, we gotta do better than this. We gotta do better.
If I could say this before we leave, both families wanted to say thank you to the Minneapolis Police Department for their quick actions in saving their children's lives at this point. They are still fighting. We don't know what they will be like should they survive this, so the prayer is necessary. But again, Chief, Mayor, thank you to the Minneapolis Police Department as well.
Thank you so much.
We're having a vigil at 6 o'clock. Can you mention it at North Memorial?
Yes, I can. North Memorial?
Thank you.
Yes. And there is a vigil at 6 o'clock over at North Memorial. So the question was about 38th and Chicago, asking if there was anything specified in this plan that addresses 38th and Chicago. The answer is no. This is a more comprehensive plan for public safety throughout the city. However, we have been working very diligently on the final plan for 38th and Chicago, and we've said repeatedly that we do need to move forward on a phased reconnection, recognizing the importance and the legacy of this site. Honoring it as a very important spot for racial healing and justice, and also acknowledging the truth, which is there have been many, many instances throughout that location and over the past several months when it simply has not been safe. And so I've been working with the chief on a near daily basis on that front. We hope to move forward soon. Thank you. No. Can you repeat the end part of that question, sir? I missed the end part.
So what's being done to reconcile the rift between police and community
Oh, sure.
so that we can prevent, because it seems like we're working in a reactive
That's right. Yep, that's right. So the question is a good one, which is, what are we doing with policing to prevent some of these crimes and some of these shootings from happening before they happen, as opposed to being in a reaction mode? A big part of that is addressed in this plan. It is both a community-oriented approach that allows for people who are on the ground, working in community, working on the block, to quickly identify some of the problematic behavior before it happens. It's working through our group violence intervention initiative, which requires both a community-centered approach as well as law enforcement. Again, it's a multiple-pronged approach that requires both ends. And I'll note that when you do have the attrition that we've seen, the chief mentioned that as much as a third of the department was we've lost over these last 9 months. That certainly does have an impact in our ability to be proactive. This plan we're putting forward now helps us to bolster the resources where we need them most in order to provide a very strategic approach to public safety through the summer. Yep. So the question was, how exactly are we paying for this approach? There's multiple different ways. The first, which is always the case, is through a budget. Through both ongoing and one-time funding, we will be proposing a budget at some point in August. Now, obviously, August is not soon enough. These Rescue Act dollars we anticipate coming forward well before then. And it's a little less than $281 million in total that can be allocated to a series of community-based projects, as well as assistance for safety that we need in the short term as well. So it's predominantly those two facets. Also note that we do have areas where there has been some private and philanthropic sector investment that has been helpful as well, and we can certainly dip into that.
So I'm not clear, is this something you're implementing tonight or tomorrow, or is this you're holding this news conference to send a message that you're paying attention, or I'm not clear what's the takeaway here?
There are things that are happening right now. There are things that are happening through the Rescue Act dollars, as I mentioned, and there are things that, yes, will take longer in order to implement, which is the plan to return some of the numbers that we have within our law enforcement and some of the budgetary assets that, yes, will take longer. So it's all three. It's short and immediate, it's midterm, and it's long-term as well. And all three of those should be in the plan. Thank you, everyone.